The general public is turning on Resident Evil Requiem. Most people were telling me I was ridiculous and that I was insane when I came out and said that Resident Evil Requiem has a very bad second half. A lot of people were complaining when I said that Leon sections in the good half of Resident Evil were lazy and pointless. How it just actively detracted from a great game. So that was the narrative initially, was that Harman Smith is wrong. Harman Smith is just a Nintendo fanboy. He only hates this game because it's not on Switch 2. I was explicitly told that, by the way. Like, people were telling me that I was making fun of this game because it wasn't on Switch 2 when I was actively streaming it on my Nintendo Switch 2. So, again, the cope was this idea that, like, oh, Harman's just being silly. He's ridiculous. You know, he's an incel. He lives in his parents' basement. You know, he doesn't make any money off of his books or his YouTube channel, right? He's just making it all up. You know, Harman Smith is wrong. Not a single person agrees with Harman Smith. And what happens? Everyone ends up agreeing with Harman Smith. You know, everything these people say about me is wrong. Okay? I was completely 100% right with Resident Evil Requiem. I went into this game, was very, very surprised with how good the first half was. I was over the moon about it. You know, I loved Grace. I loved the horror elements. I loved the mechanics. I loved so many things about the first half. And then it just went into, like, peak retardation in the second half. To the point where, like, honestly, I feel, like, scammed. Honestly, like, I have never played a game that had that good of a first half only to completely fall off by the second. It was just embarrassing. I would say, like, you know, 2 Remake and Resident Evil 7 had, like, a similar structure, because I remember really liking Resident Evil 7 and 2 Remake in the first half as well, but, like, I don't think it was as severe as this. And I do think a big part of the problem is that Capcom was really anxious to get, like, well, we have to have Leon in there so we can sell some units, because nobody cares about any Resident Evil protagonist other than Leon. So they just shoved him in there. You know, he's walking around like PS3 60 era, like, Raccoon City. It's you know it's realistic because everything in it is brown. You know, you're just going through the motions, fighting zombies with guns. You know, you're doing all this nonsense. You're, like, getting into all these, like, crazy scenarios. You're fighting dudes, and it's just, like, you know, the AI is bad, the combat is bad, the mechanics are bad, like, the story elements are bad. Like, you're telling me that for some reason Leon allegedly has, like, the entire resources of the DSO at his disposal, and he can't get anyone to help him, like, at all? It's like, really? You're telling me he can't, like, he takes his $200,000 Porsche into Raccoon City and then spends, like, 3 hours dicking around trying to, like, set off a detonator when he could just, I don't know, get his own bomb? You know, like, there's nothing keeping him in Raccoon City. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you look at what's happening, what actually happens in this game, and what you come away with is just something that's just so obviously stupid and outrageous that you just can't respect it. And what's more is that I think more and more people are starting to realize that there's a very, very big problem with the way modern Resident Evil, like, conducts itself. Because it has this idea that, like, well, if you're playing as Leon, of course you're going to be able to fight the monsters effortlessly and have no problems. Like, of course Leon will be able to, like, beat the final boss with a hatchet. You know, of course Leon will be able to take a tyrant by himself in, like, a parking lot. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no sense of danger. There's no sense of, like, it's all just like, well, Leon has done worse than this before. So, like, I don't know, man. I don't think it's that easy. Like, it's like, it doesn't understand, like, tone. It doesn't understand, like, the character. It doesn't respect, like, the brand or the franchise. Like, it just wants to do this thing where, like, Leon shows up and he fixes all the problems just because, like, oh, he's Leon, bro. It's like, it's so frustrating, because what they had was this genuinely well-made, well-crafted survival story about some autistic woman who really struggles with like basic tasks, like being forced to like kind of survive this like extreme situation. You know, like Grace is so likable and such a well-rounded character, like not only from a gameplay perspective, but like as a as a character herself. Like it's just so frustrating to see like Grace be completely upstaged by Leon. Like this should have been a game entirely about her and maybe Emily. Like everything that worked about Requiem centered around those two specifically, and like Leon just makes the entire experience worse. And I just don't understand why so many people are just so adamant that, like, no, Harman, you're wrong. Oh, this game is great. Oh, like, looking at the Metacritic score. Oh, like, it's going to outsell Pokepia. Oh, like, you're seeing people who are just delusional about this. But you also see people who are more honest, who are more genuine, who are coming out and acknowledging that, yeah, this game does have a terrible second half. This game does misuse its characters. It does have a cap-out ending. It does have problems with, like, the retcons and all this. Like, Resident Evil Requiem is a disaster, but to the general casual, like, gaming audience, it's considered to be way better than most other games that's coming out. And the worst thing about it is that is true. Like, at least Resident Evil Requiem has a good first half. For most games, I wouldn't even give it that, like, everything else I play is just completely unplayable slop. And that's what makes Requiem so frustrating, is that it was so close to being good, and then it just completely turns around and falls off and becomes ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, it completely fails to, like, really build off of anything it set up and what it did. All they would have had to do for the second half is put Leon in a different facility, in a different situation for the second half, and go through the same motions that Grace did. With his own mechanics and with, like, some new features. Maybe he has some more support from the outside. Like, again, like, maybe they could do something, but like, what they ended up doing was, like, abominably bad. And I'm glad to see that, like, more people are starting to wake up to this fact. I'm starting to see that, like, the glazing this game is getting is starting to fall apart. But, like, I am very concerned that this is going to be considered, like, one of the best games of the year purely by its initial reception, honestly. I am very, very concerned that people are going to be hyping this thing up for years. And for the rest of the year, I should say. And that really shouldn't happen. Like, this is not a game that should be celebrated. This is not something that should be talked about. Yeah, it's better than Resident Evil 6, 7, and 8, but that's really not saying very much. This game is just a complete disaster. There's nothing good about it at all. We really have to acknowledge that Resident Evil Requiem was a disappointment, and that anybody that glazes this game is just a fan.